It's great to see the seventh South African Film Festival is about to occur. In fact, from the 4th to the 31st of May, both in cinema and online in Australia. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to Collins Rex, who is the co-festival director with Ricky Human. Collins, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thank you very much, Peter, and great to catch up again 12 months after the last time.
Exactly right, but it's good to see the festival is back. I'm always intrigued about the South African film industry. Tell me about how it's going and the challenges in selecting films this year.
Well, the industry is going gangbusters, Peter. Compared to last year when we were still almost recovering from COVID, and obviously the COVID years were not good for the film industry, period. This year, we had so many films from which to choose. It was actually a really tough job for the film review committee. I can't even tell you how many films we reviewed to narrow it down to the number that we have now. But it's really exciting what's happening in the South African film industry because yes, there are the stalwarts of the industry that have been around for 40 and 50 years, but there's a whole cohort of young new filmmakers coming up through the ranks. And these are young people with new ideas, fresh ideas. Some of them still sort of want to do the Hollywood thing, but others are telling very much their own unique South African stories. And that's what we're seeing in this year's festival from the selection that we were finally able to cull from that huge group we had.
Well, congratulations on that, and it's great to hear that there are so many emerging filmmakers. And I notice you've got 9 features, 11 docos, and 13 shorts. So that's a pretty good collection of films.
It is indeed. And, we always wrestle with the number of films because obviously there's a finite period that the festival runs. And we're conscious of the fact that people have a limited amount of time. So, how many films do we put in? How many do we leave out and make it possible for people to watch as many as possible? But this year we've really got a bumper crop. So this is the largest number that we've had, and particularly on the shorts. So we made a decision to not all the shorts that were submitted have been selected, but we've certainly kept the majority of them in so that people can get a really good sense of what's coming through the ranks because it's in the short medium that most young filmmakers cut their teeth. So that's where you start seeing some of those glimpses of future brilliance. So we're really excited about the shorts program so that people can get a really good sense of what's happening in South African cinema.
Oh, excellent to hear that. Now, I noticed that the opening night film was South Africa's submission for the international Oscar, and that's The Old Righteous Blues.
Indeed. So there's a double feature, in fact, for opening night. There's Old Righteous Blues, that was South Africa's official selection for the international film category. And then there's The Last Ranger, that was, in fact, the nominated film for the short film category. But Old Righteous Blues is a truly delightful film. It's one of those rollicking, it's almost an adventure. um, Person returns to his roots, tries to revive a part of his life that he's pretty much turned his back on, and it's everything that unfolds around that. There's fabulous music, there's a lot of humor, but there's a great deal of pathos as well, and it's very much a human interest story and a perfect one for us to open the festival.
Oh, what an excellent double to have that feature and that short film, both Oscar contenders in many respects. So that's excellent news. I'm just going to discuss some of the films, and
Of course.
feel free to add some that we don't discuss. And we should also mention that the films are screening at the Classic in Melbourne, the Ritz in Sydney, and online as well.
Indeed. So we have in Melbourne, we have those two locations. We have the Classic, the Ritz in Sydney, and then we're also screening for the first time in several years. We're having a special screening in Perth. We're screening in Brisbane,
Ah,
and we're also screening in Auckland in New Zealand. So around four different dates in most of those locations, with Perth only having the one. But a number of different films in cinema, and then online, the vast majority of the program, which runs from about the 10th of May all the way through to the end of the festival.
oh, excellent to hear all that, and great that it's much more national across Australia. So that's really nice to hear. Now let's talk about a film called Showerhead.
Indeed. Yes. Showerhead's fabulous. And it's one of those things that is so well known to South Africans or people who know South Africa well. The concept of the shower head. Australian audiences might not be as familiar with it, Peter. So just a little bit of backstory. So the shower head that the film is titled after refers to a cartoon that was drawn of former South African President Jacob Zuma, who had some very interesting ideas about how you can cure various diseases, including AIDS, by showering. So, a very well-known South African cartoonist, his name is Jonathan Shapiro, but writes under the name Zapiro, came up with a shower head that was always poking out of the top of the president's head, and that is the shower head of the film. So it's one of those things, as I say, you either know what the shower head alludes to or you don't, and now everybody does.
Oh my goodness. A shower to cure illness. Isn't that incredible? It's even better than bleach.
Absolutely.
How bizarre. Okay, that sounds really interesting. And another doco is called Friendship Bench, I think it is.
Yes. So the Friendship Bench is one of those stories that is, well, it's a very interesting concept, but it's also a truly remarkable set of circumstances that came together to make this film. So the Friendship Bench is literally that. It goes back to 2006 when Dr. Dixon Chibande, who was a psychiatrist in Zimbabwe, was effectively given the mandate by the government to deal with severe mental crises. And at that stage of the country, people were really, really suffering. So he was told that he has to do something about this problem. He has to essentially fix it, but he was given no budget at all. So what he did, after much thought and much head scratching, he came up with the idea that there are people in the community that have a great deal of wisdom that they can impart, and they were really good people that you could just talk to. And these were the grandmothers in the community, or the gogos as they're called in Africa. And he would literally have a gogo sitting on a bench in a public area, and the gogo would simply sit and wait to speak to people. And someone would come up, sit down next to Gogo, and sooner or later they would start unpacking all their problems. Gogo would listen, Gogo would impart wisdom. And that is what this story is. So it's the grandmothers who ended up really giving a nation hope by sitting and chatting to them. And it's a program which is now going international. A number of different areas have taken it up, and as part of the festival, we'll be running some special Q&As and special events around this as well, because it's also something that is going to be taking off in Australia.
What an interesting concept. It sounds like a really powerful documentary in terms of that sort of approach to mental health. That's terrific to hear. Okay,
Indeed.
now, yeah. Now, a few other titles that interested me. One was called Quicksilvers. Is it Silvers or Silvers?
Yes, Quicksilvers. So Quicksilvers is an Afrikaans language film. It's one of our features. It's also one of our cinema offerings this year. Um, and this is one for anybody that has any knowledge of South African cinema, they'll recognize the cast immediately because they really are stalwarts of the industry. Um, I've tended to refer to this film as Thelma and Louise in Afrikaans. It's a group of friends who are all in their 80s who have decided to go on a road trip. And the road trip is to go and see a significant meteor shower in the Karoo. And it's the story that unfolds around this. It's really funny, but it also has some really interesting ways of looking at aging and the things that unfold as we get older, but we don't quite acknowledge the fact that we are just there yet. So a rollicking adventure, lots of laughs, but some thought-provoking action along the way too.
Oh, it sounds really nice. A very good film. Okay. Now, there's another title that struck me called Spud.
Yes. So Spud is not a new film. Spud is one that has been around for some time.
Ah,
It focuses around South Africa in 1990 when the country was in a huge state of upheaval. Um, but it's very much a coming of age film set in a boys' boarding school and
ah.
everything that unfolds as this new crop of boys find their feet in the boarding school. What is particularly interesting about Spud, not only does it feature John Cleese as one of the protagonists, but it also stars in his first real role a young Troy Sivanth, who of course has since gone on to be very well known in Australia and internationally. So this is a really good way to see how a young emerging star kind of found his feet and made his first mark internationally. And Spud will also be supported with a Q&A session in Melbourne.
Ah, now that you've described it, I remember seeing it some years ago, and yeah, it's a really good film. Oh, well done on programming it. Okay. Now, there's a film called Shap Shap, which intrigued me.
So shop shop is, and that's an expression that is very commonly used amongst particularly younger Black people in South Africa. If something is good, something is great, it would be shop shop. And what is really interesting about this film, and this is the first time we've ever done this in the South African Film Festival. Normally, our films are made by South Africans and South Africans residing in South Africa. But Sharp Sharp, which is the story of a 13-year-old boy who's homeless, looking for his father, and it's the way in which his life sort of unfolds at that time. But Sharp Sharp was made by a young Melbourne-based filmmaker. So he was born in South Africa. He now resides in Melbourne, and this is his first film. So we are very proud to be featuring it in the South African Film Festival
Mm.
and giving it an audience for the first time. And we certainly look forward to seeing much bigger and better things from our young filmmaker. And Sharp Sharp will also be screened in cinemas as a double bill. So this is another great opportunity to see a feature film and then to see a really great young filmmakers offering in a short as well.
Oh, how good to hear that. That's terrific to feature emerging filmmakers and so on. And yeah, that interesting story. Okay, Death of a Whistleblower. Ah, whistleblowers.
Yeah, so another one of our features, the death of the whistleblower, and you know, one thing that we always struggle with in the festival is balancing the number of, let's call them entertaining films, with the number of films that are there to give you more of an education, if you like.
Yeah.
So Death of the Whistleblower is one of those that is, it's an entertaining film, but it is also a pretty relevant film in today's time where we often are running into issues with people who see the wrong thing being done, want to speak up, but really don't quite know how to go about it. So in this case, it's an ex-reporter who stumbles across a covert operation. This operation allows former apartheid bosses to continue their work, and this is how this person brings this to light. So you have a journalist who escapes the assassination of her whistleblower lover, and then it's the story that unfolds around that. So it's a bit of intrigue, it's a bit of drama, and very, very entertaining film. So a great one to bring out the popcorn and the cup of tea and sit in front of your television and watch this in the comfort of your own lounge.
Okay, sounds good. Cup of tea and popcorn. That's an interesting mixture. I like it. Okay. And a film that struck me, the title struck me, in particular, Banned.
Uh, yes. I'm just sort of trying to. There's so many films, that we're trying
Yeah.
to get ourselves around all the ones that there are. So this is a doco, and our docos are the ones where we very often delve into social issues and also into South African history. So this particular film uncovers the story of Joe Bullitt, who was a groundbreaking action star in South Africa in the 1970s. What is interesting about Band is that the doco centers around the first ever all black feature film in South Africa. So the cast was all black. Joe Bullitt was a very sort of gung ho action star. But because of what the film was and the fact that it showed black people empowered, the apartheid regime banned the film. And this is the story of the film, the banning of that film, and then the subsequent release of that film a couple of years after it was first made. So an interesting part of South African history, a fairly dark part of South African history, but it does bring to the fore this amazing cast and the story around the film.
What an interesting story. It's I'm looking forward in particular to seeing that one because that is a terrific backstory to the apartheid issues that obviously pervaded South Africa years ago. So how interesting. All right. Now that there's some of the titles that struck me. Are there any others that you want to mention, Collins, that we haven't discussed so far?
Oh my goodness, there's so many of them, but there's one that is a personal favorite of mine. So
Yeah.
I'm going to mention that one. And that personal favorite is Diary of an Orphan Elephant, which is a documentary that is literally about an orphaned elephant, and also the organization, the facility where these elephants are rescued, in very many cases the parents have been killed in poaching exercises. The mothers have been slaughtered for their tusks, and the babies are left to die. And this particular one centers around a young elephant who was 3 months old when he was discovered, baby Kanyisa. Baby Kanyisa was also an albino elephant, and albino elephants generally do not survive in the wild. They just don't have the ability to do so. And rescued, brought into the elephant orphanage, and it's the story that unfolds around the saving of this baby elephant. And it really is. It's such a wonderful, warm-hearted story. I cried, and I'm sure everybody will too, in the battle to save this baby, and the baby does survive and grows into to adulthood over time. So it really is an interesting one. And this particular facility has been rescuing elephants and other baby animals as well for many years now. And it all started with a bull elephant as he is now, but he was a baby named Jabulani. So that's one of my personal favorites, Peter.
Oh, fair enough too. It sounds really interesting, and you're demonstrating the diversity of topics, issues, concerns in the both the dramas and in the documentaries, and of course the short films. So excellent stuff. And we should also mention that the South African Film Festival is part of Education Without Borders, which is so important.
It is. So the only reason that the South African Film Festival even exists is to raise funds for Education Without Borders, which is a charity organization based in the Western Cape of South Africa. It's an after-school program um, focused specifically on English skills, mathematics skills, and leadership and mentorship. And it gives children who come from sometimes absolutely horrible situations a way to take their place rightfully in the education system, but also in their future. And there have been some wonderful success stories from EWB. So every ticket that is sold, people can rest assured that all the profits from the festival go directly to EWB. So you can have a great night's entertainment and you're actually doing some great work along the way too.
That is excellent to hear, and I've always been impressed by that as part of the South African Film Festival over the years. So well done on that. All right, now time to talk about website, booking tickets, more details, and so on.
Absolutely. So there's a one-stop shop. You really need to know only one thing, and that is SAFF, SAFF.org, O-R-G.au, saf.org.au. There you will find a list of all the films in cinema, online. You'll be able to book tickets directly. You can watch all the trailers of the films, any bonus content that is created. So those Q&As that run alongside films, special footage, etc., will all be posted on the website. You can access everything from there, all our social media channels, everything else that you need to know. So saf.org.au, and you've got everything you need to make the most of this year's festival.
Excellent to hear that. Now, we should mention that I'm talking to you, Collins, that you're in South Africa at the moment. Tell me, how well supported are South African films in South Africa?
It's a thorny situation, and I think it's very much the same thing that we see in Australia, where Australian films are sometimes seen as, well, if there's nothing else to see in the cinema, then I'll go
Yeah.
and see the Australian film, unless it's one that features really well-known cast and is one of those well-known producers. It's a similar situation in South Africa. So in South Africa, a lot of the films, in fact, that we screen as part of the South African Film Festival are never seen on shore. South Africans are quite, they're almost embarrassed by their own films, which is really, really tragic because there are such fabulous films coming out. So
Mm.
if I look at the mainstream cinemas today, there's only one South African film that I could point to that is actually showing on a major cinema screen. But then there are literally dozens of film festivals, and that's where these films get their airing. So mainstream cinema, not well supported. Festivals, absolutely. So whether there are documentary festivals specifically, almost every major city has its own festival, and there the focus is very much on South African cinema and also on broader African cinema.
Uh-huh. Very interesting to hear that that sort of background. And yes, yes, we do have similar issues in Australia, so I understand. Look, Collins, it's been great talking to you. We've been speaking to Collins Rex, who's the co-festival director of the South African Film Festival, saff.org.au, and it's on from the 4th of May to the 31st of May in cinema and online. Collins, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Peter, and we look forward to seeing you at opening night.
Oh, I notice opening night is a bit tricky this year because that's when I'm on air. So,
Ah, right. Well, we'll have to make it up to you some other way. We'll get you to see the films another way. Thank you. And because you've always been such a great supporter of the festival, so thank you very much.
of course, I can tell you that I've been sent a number of screeners, including the opening night film. So I look forward to seeing it in that way.
Brilliant. Good
Collins, thank you
stuff.
so much. All the best. Bye bye.
Thank you, Peter. Bye-bye.